The late summer sun dipped behind the jagged peaks of the Bitterroot Mountains, casting long shadows over the quiet streets of Hamilton, Montana. On August 21, 2003, 17-year-old Madison Clark left her shift at the local coffee shop, humming softly to herself as she walked home along the narrow, tree-lined sidewalks. She carried her backpack, slightly slung over one shoulder, and a half-empty bottle of water she had grabbed on the way out. By 8:12 p.m., Madison had crossed Main Street, where the faint glow of street lamps struggled to pierce the early evening darkness. She was just minutes from her house, a modest two-story home on Willow Lane, yet she never made it. Neighbors later reported seeing a dark SUV parked near the edge of the park, where Madison often walked shortcut paths, though no one could confirm what happened next. The next morning, when Madison failed to show up for work, her best friend called the Clark residence, only to hear the anxious voice of her mother, Elaine, frantically trying to reach her daughter's cell phone. Calls went unanswered. Panic set in as hours passed with no sign of Madison. By noon, the Hamilton Police Department was alerted. Officers arrived at the Clark home, a mixture of concern and professional routine in their expressions, unaware that the missing person case before them would remain unresolved for more than 15 years. Search parties were quickly organized. Friends, neighbors, and volunteers combed the streets, alleys, and wooded areas surrounding Hamilton. Drones were years away from practical civilian use, so foot patrols and horseback searches became the backbone of the effort. Flyers were distributed to every store, gas station, and school. Each photograph of Madison, her wide brown eyes, long chestnut hair, and easy smile, served as both a plea and a reminder of the life suspended in uncertainty. Authorities reviewed Madison's routine. School schedules, work shifts, and friendships were all mapped to determine the most likely places she could have been. Yet as the first week passed, the trail went cold. Surveillance cameras in 2003 were limited. The coffee shop's camera captured her leaving at 8:02 p.m., smiling at the cashier, but nothing beyond that. The park and streets had no coverage, and witnesses remembered only a fleeting shadow of someone who may have been following her. Months passed, then years. Madison's family refused to give up. Her mother, Elaine, kept her room unchanged. Posters of local musicians, journals filled with sketches and poetry, and textbooks neatly stacked on her desk. Friends held vigils, lighting candles along the path she would have walked. Yet the small town of Hamilton slowly returned to its routine, haunted by the absence of a girl whose life had been abruptly stolen from sight. Police kept the file open, but resources were scarce and leads were scarce. Occasional tips would surface, some detailed, some wild, but none produced a break. The missing teenager became a ghost, not only in the town but in the eyes of everyone who had known her. In 2018, nearly 15 years after Madison vanished, Hamilton authorities received a federal grant aimed at applying modern forensic techniques to cold cases. The Montana State Crime Lab had just completed a state-of-the-art upgrade, including massively parallel sequencing for DNA analysis and new tools for genetic genealogy. Lieutenant Harper, head of the newly formed cold case unit, immediately flagged Madison's case as a priority. Evidence preserved in 2003 included strands of hair, partial fingernail scrapings, fibers from her backpack, and a cigarette butt found near the edge of the park, the latter item long dismissed at the time as unrelated. The sample, stored carefully in a freezer for 15 years, became the key DNA extracted from the cigarette butt, produced a complete male profile, one that had never entered the national CODIS system because the individual had no prior convictions requiring DNA collection. Undeterred, Harper authorized forensic genetic genealogy. The method involved comparing the unknown DNA to commercial ancestry databases, searching for distant relatives to build a family tree that would ultimately lead to the suspect. Months of painstaking analysis followed. Analysts sifted through hundreds of matches, cross-referencing birth records, obituaries, and public documents. Small towns like Hamilton had tight-knit populations which complicated matters. Any misstep risked alerting the wrong person. By March 2019, the genealogists had narrowed the suspect list to a handful of men living in Ravalli County. One name emerged with consistency: Douglas Reeve, a 42-year-old lifelong resident, local handyman, and volunteer for multiple community initiatives. He lived just 2 blocks from Madison's home, a neighbor whose presence had been woven into the fabric of the town for decades. Reeve's DNA was discreetly collected from discarded items. Within days, the match was confirmed, 99.9997% probability. The man who had seemed ordinary, a fixture of the community, was directly linked to Madison's disappearance. Investigators immediately prepared for a warrant. Surveillance confirmed that Reeve's routines had not changed since 2003. He drove the same routes, maintained the same employment, and attended town meetings, all while living a secret that had shattered a family's life. The Clark family was notified in confidence, their relief tempered by the revelation that the person responsible had been so close for so long. By late April, the warrant was executed. Officers found evidence in Reeve's property linking him to Madison: fibers matching her backpack, photographs suggesting surveillance, and detailed logs of her movements from the weeks before she disappeared. The arrest sent shockwaves through Hamilton. Neighbors who had waved to Reeve, attended volunteer events with him, or accepted his assistance on community projects now questioned every interaction. How could a man so familiar and trusted conceal a crime so profoundly disturbing? The town grappled with disbelief, betrayal, and grief all over again. Yet the breakthrough brought answers. The girl who had disappeared in 2003 had not been forgotten, and the community could finally confront the truth. The town of Hamilton seemed to hold its breath in the days following Douglas Reeve's arrest. News spread quickly, first through the local paper, then social media feeds and online forums. Residents, many of whom had seen Reeve volunteering at church fundraisers or helping elderly neighbors with repairs, were forced to reconcile the man they knew with the monster DNA had revealed. Helene Clark, now 32 years past the day she last saw her daughter, felt a mixture of relief and profound sorrow. Madison's bedroom remained untouched for 15 years, a shrine to the girl who vanished in the early evening shadows of August 21, 2003. For Elaine, the arrest answered the haunting question of what had happened, yet the grief endured, now mingled with the unsettling realization of betrayal by someone so familiar. Investigators delved into Reeve's past with renewed intensity. He had no prior criminal record, no history of violent behavior documented in public records, and a seemingly ordinary life. Yet evidence collected from his property told a different story. Fibers from Madison's backpack were found in a hidden compartment beneath his workbench. A series of photographs, many blurred but clearly taken of Madison from a distance, indicated months of planning and surveillance. Notes in a leather-bound journal described her daily routines, locations she frequented, and times she would leave for work. Each page revealed the methodical nature of the abduction and the terrifying foresight Reeve had employed to avoid detection. Law enforcement agencies carefully reconstructed the timeline of Madison's disappearance. At approximately 8:12 p.m., surveillance footage captured her leaving the coffee shop. Witnesses recalled seeing a dark SUV parked near the edge of the park, but in 2003, officers lacked the resources to identify the vehicle or its occupant. Reeve's meticulous record-keeping and the hidden cigarette butt provided the genetic clue that would ultimately break the case. Modern forensic analysis revealed that he had approached Madison as she walked along the tree-lined path, offering a ride. When she declined, citing parental warnings, he forcibly diverted her toward his vehicle, a crime that went unnoticed in the chaotic twilight and among the shadows of the quiet park. The Clark family met with detectives multiple times to recount details from 2003, Elaine described her routine, her fears that night, and her unwavering search efforts in the days and weeks following Madison's disappearance. Her recollections, combined with witness statements from neighbors and colleagues, allowed investigators to verify the reconstructed timeline and match it against Reeves' documented activities. Each cross-referenced fact confirmed the DNA evidence and forensic findings, solidifying the case for prosecution. Community reaction was intense. Families who had lived alongside Reeve were shocked and distraught. People questioned every encounter, every volunteer effort, every casual conversation. How could someone so integrated into the fabric of Hamilton commit such a heinous act and remain undetected for 15 years? Town meetings became emotionally charged. Some residents expressed relief that the case was solved, while others struggled with lingering distrust, re-evaluating relationships. The legal proceedings moved forward with deliberate care. Prosecutors focused on the meticulous collection of forensic evidence and the compelling genetic genealogy that had identified Reeve as Madison's abductor. Courtroom testimony included detailed explanations of the DNA analysis, the preservation of the cigarette butt, and the step-by-step methodology that linked Reeve to the crime after more than a decade. Forensic experts outlined how massively parallel sequencing allowed them to develop a complete profile from previously unusable samples, emphasizing the revolutionary role of science in resolving cold cases. Victim advocates highlighted the significance of Madison's case beyond Hamilton. It demonstrated that even in small towns with limited investigative resources, modern technology and persistence could finally deliver justice. The case served as a blueprint for other jurisdictions, illustrating the necessity of maintaining and preserving evidence, and how genetic genealogy could be ethically applied to uncover long-hidden crimes. During the trial, the courtroom was packed with residents, friends, and family. Media coverage remained intense, though controlled to ensure the integrity of proceedings. Witnesses from 2003 recounted their memories, providing context for the crime and humanizing the timeline for jurors. Detectives testified to the painstaking work involved in cross-referencing old records, analyzing fibers, and verifying photographic evidence. Each detail highlighted the patience required to bring Reeve to justice, emphasizing that the passage of time does not erase accountability. Reeve maintained a largely silent demeanor throughout the proceedings, occasionally offering terse denials or vague responses when questioned. The overwhelming forensic evidence, however, left little room for doubt. The combination of DNA, corroborated witness accounts, and physical evidence from his property painted a clear and compelling narrative of abduction and concealment. Jurors deliberated for several days, weighing the extensive documentation against the suspect's lack of prior convictions and apparent integration into the community. Ultimately, the verdict was unanimous. Douglas Reeve was found guilty of abduction and murder. The sentence reflected the severity of the crime and the prolonged suffering imposed on Madison's family. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole ensured that Reeve would never re-enter the community he had terrorized. The announcement of the verdict brought both relief and a somber recognition of the years lost. For Elaine Clark and the extended family, the decision validated their decades-long pursuit of justice and allowed a measure of closure, though the emotional scars remained. In the aftermath, Hamilton sought healing. Community members organized memorials for Madison, incorporating lessons learned from the investigation into public safety initiatives. Local schools held assemblies discussing the importance of vigilance, awareness, and the role of forensic science in law enforcement. The Hamilton Police Department implemented more rigorous evidence preservation protocols and established a dedicated cold case unit to ensure that no unresolved cases would be left dormant. The Clark family transformed their grief into advocacy. Elaine became an active voice for missing persons, sharing Madison's story at conferences, seminars, and through media interviews. She emphasized the importance of perseverance, scientific innovation, and community involvement in resolving cold cases. Her efforts helped inspire other families to maintain hope and engage with investigative resources, demonstrating that time does not diminish the possibility of justice. Douglas Reeve remains incarcerated, his crimes exposed for all to see. The town of Hamilton, while forever changed by the revelation, began the slow process of reclaiming a sense of safety and trust. Madison Clark's legacy endured, not only through memorials and scholarships established in her name, but also through the awareness her case brought to the importance of forensic science, community vigilance, and relentless pursuit of truth. Her story became a testament to resilience and the enduring power of justice, proving that even decades-old mysteries can be solved when science and determination converge. For those following cold cases, Madison's story underscores that every piece of evidence matters, every witness account holds significance, and that no matter how much time passes, answers can emerge. The case offers hope to families who have waited years, sometimes decades, for closure, reminding the world that even small towns can confront darkness and uncover the truth. The courtroom was tense, the air thick with anticipation, as the Montana 2003 cold case finally reached its climax. After 15 years, the town of Hamilton, law enforcement, and Madison Clark's family had waited for this moment. Families who had once whispered theories and speculations in grocery store aisles now sat shoulder to shoulder, listening to the culmination of decades-long investigation. The jury, carefully selected to balance impartiality with awareness of the case's emotional weight, entered quietly, settling into their seats with the gravity the case demanded. Prosecutor Hannah Reynolds opened with a measured yet powerful recounting of Madison's last known movements. Surveillance footage from the coffee shop, faded photographs preserved in evidence, and witness testimony from that August evening in 2003 painted a vivid portrait of a girl, unaware that her life was about to be violently interrupted. Reynolds detailed the painstaking forensic work, from the preservation of a cigarette butt at Reeves' property to the modern DNA analysis that identified him as the perpetrator. "Science does not forget," she stated. "Even after 15 years, the truth has a way of surfacing." Detectives took the stand, narrating their methodical reconstruction of the events. Officer Marcus Vance described the tireless work, reviewing old records, tracing Reeves' movements, and verifying eyewitness accounts. Each piece of evidence, no matter how small, formed a mosaic of truth, he testified. The jury was shown images of Madison's scattered belongings, her backpack fibers matching samples from Reeves' hidden compartments, and the journal meticulously documenting her routines. The painstaking details underscored the calculated and premeditated nature of the crime, shattering any notion that it had been spontaneous. Family members of Madison were called to the stand, their voices often trembling but resolute. Elaine Clark recounted the uncertainty, anguish, and relentless search that defined the years following Madison's disappearance. She described checking her daughter's bedroom daily, the lingering scent of her shampoo, the open diary pages frozen in time. "For 15 years I wondered what had happened," Elaine said, her voice breaking. "I wondered if she was suffering, if she was alone. Today I know the truth. It brings pain, yes, but it also brings justice." Her testimony resonated with jurors and observers alike, a stark reminder of the human cost of unresolved crime. The defense attempted to cast doubt, highlighting Reeves' unblemished criminal record, his contributions to the community, and the passage of time. They argued that memories from 2003 were unreliable, and that physical evidence could have degraded or been contaminated. However, forensic experts countered these claims, explaining the robustness of massively parallel sequencing and the ethical application of genetic genealogy. Each rebuttal reinforced the strength of the prosecution's case. Perhaps the most emotionally charged testimony came from Dr. Angela Whitman, the forensic geneticist who analyzed the DNA from the cigarette butt and other samples. She explained the meticulous process of extracting a usable profile from degraded material, the cross-referencing with commercial genealogy databases, and the careful narrowing of familial connections leading to Reeve. Her explanation bridged the gap between complex science and everyday understanding, ensuring that jurors could grasp the certainty of the match. "The genetic evidence does not lie," Dr. Whitman stated plainly. "It confirms what decades of investigation suggested, that Douglas Reeve was responsible for Madison Clark's disappearance and death." Witnesses from the community spoke next, some reluctantly, others with veiled anger. Neighbors recalled small, seemingly innocuous interactions, while former colleagues described Reeve's courteous demeanor that masked a dangerous obsession. These testimonies painted a portrait of a man who had successfully concealed his intentions behind decades of apparent normalcy. The community grappled with the shocking contrast between public persona and private crime. As closing arguments approached, Prosecutor Reynolds drew a clear line from Madison's disappearance to Reeve's deliberate actions. She emphasized the premeditation, the meticulous documentation, and the prolonged suffering inflicted on Madison's family. "Justice may have been delayed," Reynolds said, "but it was never denied. The truth, no matter how deeply buried, always surfaces." The defense offered a brief statement, reiterating that Reeve had led a law-abiding life, but the impact was diminished by the overwhelming forensic and testimonial evidence. The jury retired to deliberate, a period marked by intense scrutiny of the evidence. News of the trial reached neighboring towns, sparking conversations about trust, safety, and the power of modern investigative techniques. Families who had once feared for their own children found reassurance in the meticulous work that had brought a resolution to Madison's case. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict. Douglas Reeve was found guilty of abduction and murder. A collective sigh, a mixture of relief and lingering sorrow, swept through the courtroom. Elaine Clark embraced her sister as tears streamed down her face. The weight of 15 years of uncertainty finally lifted. Though grief remained, the validation that Madison's case had been resolved offered a measure of peace. Sentencing followed swiftly. The judge, acknowledging the prolonged trauma and the deliberate nature of Reeve's actions, imposed life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Her statement was solemn, highlighting both the severity of the crime and the courage of those who had persisted in seeking justice. "The suffering imposed on the Clark family is immeasurable," she said. "Let this sentence serve as a testament that time does not shield one from accountability." In the months that followed, Hamilton began the delicate process of healing. Memorial services honored Madison's life, community initiatives promoted awareness of missing persons, and local schools incorporated educational programs emphasizing vigilance and forensic science. The Hamilton Police Department formalized a cold case unit, ensuring that unsolved cases would receive dedicated attention and that preservation of evidence would be prioritized. Elaine Clark emerged as a vocal advocate for missing persons and the use of forensic genealogy in law enforcement. She shared Madison's story widely, emphasizing the importance of persistence, the ethical use of science, and community involvement. Her work inspired other families to maintain hope and collaborate with authorities, proving that even in small towns, justice is attainable with dedication and innovation. Douglas Reeve remains incarcerated, his crimes fully exposed, yet the town continues to grapple with the aftermath. Hamilton residents navigate the complex emotions of betrayal, relief, and lingering distrust. Yet Madison Clark's legacy endures through memorials, scholarships in her name, educational programs, and the awareness her case raised about the importance of science, community vigilance, and unwavering pursuit of truth. Her story serves as a poignant reminder that even after decades, cold cases can be resolved, and justice can prevail. The Montana 2003 cold case exemplifies how patience, technology, and human determination converge to bring closure to families, accountability to perpetrators, and lessons to communities. It demonstrates the vital role that evidence preservation and forensic innovation play in uncovering long-hidden crimes. Madison Clark's life, tragically cut short, continues to speak through the efforts of those who refuse to forget, highlighting that justice, though delayed, can never be denied. For families of missing persons across the country, Madison's story offers hope. It proves that no matter how many years pass, answers can emerge, perpetrators can be held accountable, and communities can begin to heal. In Hamilton, her memory remains a guiding light, ensuring that the dark shadows of the past give way to lessons, vigilance, and ultimately, the enduring